Hello, hello, Coach here. I have just returned from Scale Model Challenge 2023 in Eindhoven, Holland. And what can I say? I mean, it's a show of shows. The time has arrived for us to understand the importance of what we're about to embark upon. I have no idea what I'm talking about. How do I do an intro for this? What are we talking about today? What is going on? The world of scale modeling is definitely an interesting one. Can I say that? I don't think I could say that. You know, we have a passion for this. We share a love of history. We share a love of machines. We share a love of the stories behind all that stuff. And we're fortunate enough that we're supported by companies that manufacture items that we can, combine together to create pieces for ourselves. We call them scale models. Some people think of it as art. Some people think of it as historical replication and everything in between. Many years ago, I set about to kind of settle my own life, to fill a hobby, to fill a void in my own personal life. And I think many of you have the same stories, as we get older a little bit, or you just have this passion for the things that we want to do. And you walk back through the age of the web forums and then the rise of social media. And the one constant in many of this has always been the hobby shows, the competitions, call them what you like, wherever you are in the world. They've been there all the time. They've been there throughout everything, right? I mean, and those of us over a certain age, we've been around for many of those too. And Scale Model Challenge has kind of risen from, I don't want to say the ashes. It's such a cliche, but it's risen from the end of Euro Militaire, and specifically to the armor modeling community, and also to the figure modeling community. While I don't participate with them, we are often together. Figures and armor, dioramas, vignettes, and Scale Model Challenge has embraced that from the start, and that's what Euro Militaire was a figure show that added armor onto it, and the armor became really prominent after a point in time, of which those of my generation from Missing Links in the web forums in particular, those were shows that we really took on as the pinnacle of what we do in terms of hobbyists. And obviously, as you guys well know, I took that a step further by starting my own company with it, but at the same time, that journey, and that's a good word. That journey is like a lot of things that we deal with in life, have its up and downs. It's come full circle a few times. And here at SMC 2023, I think we're in kind of a midpoint. And this might come as a little bit of surprise to some people. It may not to others. I'm not really sure where you lie on this scale of it. And the purpose of this video here, it's not really a review of SMC, not at all. It has nothing to do with SMC, to be honest with you, outside of the fact that that was the hosting venue and the hosting event for this. What my video here is about is really, where are we going? What are we as a hobby now? And I'm speaking, and I have to, because that's kind of my focus right now. And a lot of you that are, at least follow me or watch me or read me, that's your focus too. And it's armor, and it's in all its shapes and forms, between the vignettes and the dioramas and standalone armor, and predominantly, where is that going? If I take a step back for a second, I think it's fair to say with some authority that armor modeling, particularly the finishes that we've kind of collated here for the last decade or so, are we lead the way in many ways, in many genres. We're the ones that lead that way. A lot of other genres look towards us for these ideas, to which we propagate across the tables. It's a little bit of the Spider-Man. We have that responsibility to everybody. So part of my video is about that topic. Part of my video is about where are we going for the next 10 to 15 to 20 years. Who is the next generation coming up behind those of us that have been doing this for a while? And that was something that I have not, I guess because I had not been on continent for 5 years. My last show was Motion, Hungary 2017, and then Belgium Scale Model Challenge 2018, BSMC. And then from there, COVID happened shortly after that, and I was not able to make World Model Expo and or the previous SMC show I was invited to, and this was the first one I'm able to get back to myself personally, and they invited me over. Robert and the team, Ivan, Martin, came over or contacted me and invited me to be a judge, to which I happily agreed. In fact, I was supposed to judge at World Model Expo, and things didn't go according to plan on my side, so it was good to be there. You know, I think first and foremost, it was good to be boots on ground. It was good to be present. And obviously, Rinaldi Studio Press comes with a lot of baggage right now. And to be present was an important topic, both personally and professionally. Of course, there's a lot behind that. But it was first and foremost the contacts and the friends and the fuzz on my face that needs to go away. That was driving me nuts. But that's also kind of what this is. You know, the social aspect of our hobby is probably what it is for most of us. And I'll get to the competitive spirit in a minute. But realistically, to be there, to be present, to see the stage again, to see the vendor room and the club room and all those that come with it, and tons of personalities from all over the world, in a literal sense this time. And that was fun to see. And I met new friends and old friends, and was able to tell my story a little bit clearer to some people that had questions about it, which was also nice to have a platform a little bit for that. But just being there was something, a little bit of a small victory. And then to be there and to be asked to be there, to be a judge, to be part of the jury panel for deciding kind of the outcome of the medals for armor. I was class 40 Masters armor, single standalone, 48 skill and above. And, you know, I take a lot of responsibility for that. I look at it with a certain point of view. And I will say now, to prep a few of you, you're probably not going to like everything that I've either done or said in the last 48 hours regarding SMC in terms of the models on display. Again, nothing to do with the show, just where are we as a hobby? What is armor modeling today? What is it about today? And I'm also in the position, and I feel I'm in a position of a level of expertise with this, of having been walking through that path from 2003 to my first show at Euro in 2007, all the way to almost the end of the series of Euro Militaire, and then through about 8 other international shows, venues, parts of the world from North America throughout Europe, and my own path of competition, my own journey through all of that, my own achievements within that, and what I did when I didn't think I won something to a certain level that I felt I'd maybe had earned, and the judges felt differently. And what do we do with that, and how we manage that, and what are our expectations as a scale modeler and what we're trying to do, and then as a collective. And I say this with true importance, as a collective, who are we? And I wouldn't ask that question today, obviously, if I walked into the competition room and I was a little bit, not confused, but definitely we are playing it safe. And I think what has happened in the last decade in particular, the last 5-6 years, 3 of it with COVID, of course, playing it safe is probably understandable. And this isn't a criticism in terms of a personal attack to anybody. This isn't a criticism in terms of, oh, you suck, or, you know, none of those things. That's not how Coach works. And I think those of you that know me well enough to know that's not what the point of this is. Really what I want to see, where I'm going with this, the core of the thesis of my little rant here today is, think about that a little bit. Where are we going? What are we doing? Who are we? What is your purpose with this? You know, I find the conservatism, I find the safe plays that I saw at SMC are, they're probably personal. I think a lot of you who do this for the sake of competition, and I'm speaking to a core group of people here right now, just to be clear. If you stand into a competition or walk into it or with intent to compete, and I'm speaking to the competitor in you right now, I'm speaking to that person that is competitive. You, especially in Masters armor, I hold you to a certain level, as I hold myself to a certain level. Don't be confused about that whatsoever. The hardest thing to do when you're given the task of being a judge, and I'll cite some examples here in a second, but the hardest thing to do is to remove the friendship. And I've seen it for 20 years in this hobby. Show after show after show after show, it's the friends that get a lot of the awards. And I'm not going to pussyfoot around that, nor should I. But it was palpable. It was palpable within the judging criteria. It was palpable within kind of when it was going on, and it was palpable afterwards in both positive and negative ways. Someone like me who's 24/7, 365, and in many years ago, someone wrote to me, "Remember, Mike, you're speaking to a bunch of rivet counters in Payne." I chuckle if you know who I am, because that's almost disrespectful. I have spent the last 18 plus years of my life in the study of this, in the effort of this, in the execution of this, in the description of this, in the education of this. I walked in the show with my own piece. That was the culmination of what I feel is 18 years of effort and principles at play. And I couldn't compete in my own class, so it was on display. But at the same time, there are some comparisons being made from my own, what I think I'm capable of as a scale model builder, as Michael Rinaldi, as Rinaldi Studio Press, the author, the publisher. What is it that we're trying to do today in 2023? Now, I'm going to be a little bit blunt and say that not much is, in fact, we've probably slipped backwards from 2013, from 10 years ago. And that's going to piss a few of you off. I know that. And you need to hear this, though. I think more than anything, many of you need to be challenged. And I say that with love. I say that as somebody who would share a beer with you or even go to war with you, because some of you I've known for a long, long, long time. And those of you that compete in categories such as Master's Armor, or Master Vignette, or Master's Diorama, who are we? And not to be blunt, but I saw so much of same, status quo, conservative. I've seen this 1,000 times before, both in story and description and position and angle and colors and everything else in between. And I'm not saying, again, this isn't to knock you down. My job is to raise you up. My job is to push you forward. And if I'm going to be a master level judge, then I'm going to bring the acumen of what I sit down and do myself at this bench that I sit here right now talking to you from, with the things that I use, the brushes, the airbrushes, the paints, all of it. I say to you, push harder. And I'm not saying that to go sit down at the kids' table and take notes on this. That's not being rude and disrespectful. I'm saying, no. Where are we as a hobby right now? What are we trying to achieve? We're coming out of the fog of the pandemic. And this is the second major show in Europe that is, past World Model Expo at the same venue and the same this. And where is SMC going to be going now? I felt personally as the judge, to earn a gold in Master's Armor at SMC should be the equivalent, at least on a baseline, of what we earned as a gold at Euromilitaire, and what that meant to us, and what that meant when you walked in that room, and with the space of 20 meters, you would see everybody that was ever important in this hobby, at least in the armor modeling side, and including some massive figure painters as well, because it's all kind of mingled in together, and it was everybody and everybody, literally and figuratively. It was that type of thing. You couldn't get through 20 meters or 30 feet of space without bumping shoulders and rubbing elbows with all of them at Leeds Cliff Hall. And if you know, you know. And if you don't sweat it, because SMC has that potential. Motion has that already. All these things have those kind of things, those pinnacle shows that we like. But what are we? It was a little bit, and let me say it through another way. Let me put it to you another way. You remove Parallel Lund's diorama, and that ordnance class was a struggle of who can go toe-to-toe with the best in that room. And I don't think any of them could go toe-to-toe with the Japanese Zero that was there. And I don't think any of them were really in the conversation of about, if you look at the pinnacle pieces from Euromilitaire in the days past and Missing Links and some of the heavyweights and everything of this nature, and I think some of those pieces in there would just really struggled. And it was part of the conversation as a judge in my group of 3 judges. And I'm not going to get into names, by the way. This isn't a naming contest. This isn't a who's who thing. This is a perception thing. This is a from the gut thing. This is from somebody who has spent the better part of 20 years of their adult 50-year plus life doing this. And I mean doing this almost 365 days a year for 10 years, 15 years, 20 years in some capacity. I've put my time in. I've earned my stripes. I've earned my bruises too, but in this specific thing, I've earned my stripes. And those of you that are on the other side of this, that were there, that were in the competition, that has received my I don't know, critical judgment, maybe. It's not with to knock you down. Again, I know most of you, you know, and that's a thing. And you have to remove that human element out of it. But I sat there and I felt this group of guys today, those of us that are here today, and I will say that there's probably a 30 to 50% portion of these guys that should be in Masters Armor from all of Europe, Japan, and America that were not there. They should hear this too, because it's coming your way when you decide to return, because I think SMC should be that point of return for a bulk of us. I think the show has earned its stripes at 15 years next year, hosting World Model Expo after all the pandemic stuff that we went through. I think it deserves its rightful place as kind of one of the jewels of the European circuit. Absolutely, 1,000%. Robert and his team of Martin and Ivan and Margot, they've done, I mean, it was one of the most, I will say, one of the smoothest shows I've ever seen. And that's to their credit. They know exactly what they're doing. They have a real purpose of what it was. And they gave us clear instructions. Roberts particularly gave us very, very clear instructions in the judging room of what it is to look for. And that's part of this conversation in terms of what a judge sits down and does at a show that is literally one of the best in the world. It's not a regional championship. It's not a continental championship. It's kind of, you come into SMC, and I say this again as a challenge. You got to bring your A game. If you're in any of the top classes, it doesn't matter. You have to bring your A game. You have to, and I mean this to the figure side, to the aircraft side, to the ships and the dioramas and the vignettes and the rise of the machines, which is our fantasy science fiction crowd. You have to bring your A game. And you have to check yourself. You have to find those things that are going to elevate you and your work to a higher level. And yeah, it's the reference photos, and I get all that. Trust me, there's nobody here on point more of pushing reference photos to you guys. And you guys know that. You know where I stand in all of this. Most of you are watching me for the last 3-4 years, fumbling around on YouTube doing these kind of things, right? I mean, it is part of it. Don't get me wrong. And I'm not trying to say this with ego or vanity. But I'm here to push. If I'm 5,000 miles away from most of you and I don't get to interact with you on a regular basis in like days past, then know from my side to go over there and see that, to be a judge of said people, it's time that we sit down and start to push each other. The pats on the back, you know, save those for the bar. You know, save those for the beer at the pub or whatever it be for you. You know, I think social media has done in many ways in life, and we all know this too. It is. We kind of coddle each other a little bit too much. And of course, there are other, you know, when we're talking the whole collective of social media here, and I'm not here to pick things apart, but it's really, there's too much coddling. I don't want to say this, but I'm gonna. But we're soft. This hobby has become a bit soft. And it's time we kind of thicken our skins up. We get a little bristly. And we say, what are we doing next? What is the push for the next vision of what this hobby is about? Because I remember distinctly walking in for multiple Euromilitaires time and time again. Somebody would come in and kick you in the nuts. And you're like, holy shit, that is amazing. And it was the lack of the guttural impact when I walked through the armor categories that was really, really clear for me to see. There was nothing there that was like a guttural, holy shit, that is amazing. There was some technical brilliance. So to speak to judging criteria specifically, to speak to the Masters Armor category specifically, again, I'm not here to point out which model was what and what we were doing. That's not what the purpose of this video is. But it's really to kind of give you a better idea in terms of when we walk through what we're looking for. And my first pass, as many judges' first pass in a category, no matter what it is to really, you'll see the ones that percolate up quite easily as a judge. And then it was to go through, and then you pick a side, and this was a linear thing, so you pick a left or right, and you start on one side, and you work your way down, etc. And you discuss it with your fellow judges, and there's 3 per category in this case with SMC, and it's 3 good, solid personalities who have the skills and the experience to be here. So that was something, the respect levels there. We got on fine. There was no like heated arguments, but we had some debates. But collectively in the beginning, and it did change over time a little bit, but collectively in the beginning, the first overall impression was there wasn't really any gold medal level stuff here on display in Masters Armor. And I have to inflectuate it that way because I think I need you guys to hear that. You know, it's what does a gold mean at SMC became more and more relevant. It became, what is it that we're giving away here? Are we rewarding effort purely for the sake of effort? You know, it was 48 scale and larger, so some 48 scale armor was competing against 16 scale armor. And we're seeing, not to be cliche, but we're seeing the rise of 16 scale in the armor classes because there's going to be a flood of new kits here, and it's already started. And it's happening, and it's probably going to keep going on. And as we all kind of get older, this core group of us from say 40 to 65 or so that have been here for 20 years, you know, that's the thing now. You're seeing a rise of 16 scale armor, which is great, no problem. It's just you're going to have space issues. You're going to have a division of, if I'm going to compete with a 48 scale piece against a 16 scale piece, there is some conversations to have about it. I think there's some healthy debate to have about that a little bit. Is it fair? And that's what this is. There's some sort of a fairness. And it might be, I think 72 and 48 should be grouped together. And if you're going to go 35th and 16th might be a better way to play that now. You know, so, but again, there's always going to be opinions on that. But when you see it as a judge, when you see it from the sake of the collective mass of who's competing that day, and then taking pieces, we're smart enough to take it in, don't get me wrong, but I mean, to see it comparatively speaking to the medal conversation, and this goes to every international show everywhere in the world that does this, the rewards of effort. He put a lot of time into it, or she put a lot of time into it. I get that. I understand that. It's a part of it, and it's not the award though. And so effort to me is something, if you're Master's Armor, you've earned your stripes. If you know what I mean, I provide you with that level of respect as a judge to say, hey, you're already here. By the same token, if you're in Master's Armor or you're in a Master's class anywhere in the world that's like a large international show like this, be mindful of the fact that you're playing at the pro level. You're a D1 athlete. That comes with pride. Don't be discouraged if you're in that class and you didn't receive what you thought and or nothing. You're still a Master's Armor category competitor. At the end of the day, that means something. And you have to understand what that means to you. If your drive is the competitive fire that fucking Aaron all day I want to win, then prove it to me. Prove it to me. And I mean, I'm speaking to everybody right now. Prove it to me. You know, and there's some things I could say that would be a little bit, you know, poking the fire. And I'm not here for that per se, but I am also putting the challenge forward. And I want you guys to respect that. The challenge here is show me what's next. Years ago, maybe 12 or 13 years ago, I was able to walk for 5 minutes through a very, very busy Euro military with, at the time, the head judge, Marin Van Gils. Many of you know Marin, and many of you hold him at the same level I do. I think he's probably one of the top model builders the world's ever seen. And I say that with love. I say that with somebody who has witnessed his career for the same 18 years, and he predates me, but it's just when you look at that body of work, and I've published his work at one point in time too, so I'm very familiar. And he said to me, and I think I asked him way in the day, I said, what do you look for as the head judge? What do you look for, Marin? Because everybody's looking at you with big googly eyes, you know, beautiful hair, his excitement, his passion. I mean, it's infectious. And what did he say? What did he say to me? He said, what's new? If you got a gold last year, I've already seen it. What's new? And a lot of people miss that. They don't understand the nuances of, at a master's level, what's new? And that's what I saw. That's what I took into it. And in another judge, too, whom I don't think gets enough credit in this community, Jari Kovalainen is really, he was one of those from Finland, he is a stalwart of pure judgmental, critical eye without any outside influence whatsoever. It's a master to see. It's just a wonderful iteration of what a judge should be. And Jari, oftentimes, in just his actions, nothing he said to me, but it was just, you watch him, and it was just impeccable to see what his perception of things. And I tried to take some of that into kind of what I was doing now as being asked to judge Master's Armor. I took that seriously. I take this seriously. I take this, I live and breathe this seriously. And I'm talking the nuances of every effing brushstroke, my friends. And that's probably what tripped some of you up, is you weren't ready for a little bit of a critical eye to say, okay, well, let's have a conversation about just the width of that, or the size of that, or the scale of that. And let's have a conversation about your technical, excellence in this, this, and this. But where's the story? Where's the new? Where's the gut punch? Where's the, I've not seen this before? And that's what we meant by that. And so we went through a period where there weren't any golds in the class for the first part of our judging criteria. And that was because what was missing is what's new. What's the next thing? And that's something I want to push forward with this video here for you guys, is to just take that to heart. Take that from a personal pat on the back. This is nothing to be any to knock anybody down whatsoever. And to be honest with you, I'm so off of social media. I didn't even know whose was who for most of the show in terms of what model was whose. So it wasn't anything to do with the name. And it never should really be that. We're human. It happens all the time. And so that's not something I'm overly critical of, but it's just trying to take the responsibility for, hey, this wasn't about who it was. Signature is important. Signature has a purpose. As you all know, I push this hard. But it's about where this is as a hobby. Where are we going? What is the next generation coming behind us going to see when we put down and say, that's gold medal at one of the best shows in the world? What does that say to everybody else? And that's what I mean by we weren't sure at the time, the three of us, that there were truly any gold medal pieces. And after some thought, we felt that there were, and it was debated, and it was a very healthy debate. And to the respect of the person that initiated that, absolutely. And to the show and the show's purpose, what the instructions were from the heads on down to us, absolutely. So we awarded some gold medals in the class. But I say that with the caveat that what's new, and to those that got the gold, what's next from you? What is next stuff? Because it was very conservative in terms of you taking a risk. And I'm not asking everybody to come out there and do something crazy, but the lack of risk taking was very, very evident. And I'm not the only one that thought that. So it was something I saw almost immediately. And and I'll leave all of you with this as I wrap up this video. As a judge, as RSP and everything else that comes with this fellow, and you guys have all heard me say this for a while now, you're letting fear guide you. You're letting the fear of a mistake guide your hand. Your trepidation of, I don't want to fuck this up, is going to start getting pushed back by guys like me of stop being a little girl about this stuff. Stop being scared of the dark. And that's going to be hard for some of you. And I know that. But I say that with open arms. I say that with, I'm here to help. I say that with, I will always be here to help for that. But embrace the fact that stop being so scared of, I don't want to screw my project up. Honestly, as someone who grew up with Bob Ross, literally, well, no, that's too literal. As who watched him as a youth all the way through my art days and everything else. The happy accident's a real thing. It's legit. It's a fantastically coined phrase. But don't fear that. Don't fear that with the chemicals that we play with today. And that's something I want a lot of you really heavyweights to take to heart now, because you're leading the charge for what comes behind us. Because here's the other problem you're going to have. What comes behind you is going to skip over you. And if you want to compete with them, push harder. So I say that with love. It was fantastic to see everybody. And I hope to see you next year. Peace. Take care.